You probably think that trying to draw and fade your pitches is too complicated and not for you, but you're wrong. It can be very, very simple. I'm going to share with you how. Why do we want to do it? Well, it gives you more options. So I've just hit 2 shots and we're going to look through them. This is the draw swing. And this is the fade. So visually they're 2 very different ball flights. The first one, which is the white line, started more on target and drew and was a lot lower at the peak height. The second one, which is the green line, we can see a much higher flight. We can see something that's moving to the right. And you also saw there a huge difference in how quickly the ball stopped. The fade stopped dead. No run, no roll, whereas the draw ball flight ran on 7 yards. I'll just double check it. Yeah, I was right there. 7 yards of roll compared to 1 yard of roll. The fade had a higher launch angle. It had more backspin. It had a higher peak height and a steeper angle of descent, all meaning the ball came into the ground and stopped much quicker. So the fade can work when we've perhaps got that front pin. Maybe we're downwind. Maybe we need to stop that ball quickly because we're going for it where it's tucked over a bunker. The draw ball flight is that lower one where it's going to chase, so if it's a back flag. And there's actually a reason to play one or the other depending on the lie as well, which I'm going to get onto now. And it's really not that complicated, so I'm going to simplify things just with a few setup things and a little swing tweak. Let's start with the draw ball flight. What did you notice? Well, one, I set up with more of a closed stance. For me as a right-handed golfer, that is my body aiming a little bit more out to the right of the target, the same way as we would do when we're trying to draw a golf ball with our iron or a driver. We generally drop back this trail foot, but it's also important to try and do it with the hips, the pelvis, and the upper half as well. From a face-on point of view, I may have knocked that ball just a little bit further back in my stance. So I can drop that ball slightly further back and I can get my stance, my body aiming a lot more to the right of the target. I had the club face pretty square to the target line, okay, pretty square there. And in terms of a swing motion, you'll have just seen a much more rounded movement as if I was following my body line, a much more rounded, much more shorter golf swing. So it was more this way. Let's just go ahead and hit one more. So stance and body is closed. Ball's a little bit further back, swing's a little bit more rounded. And again, visually, a much lower ball flight. I've underhit that one a little bit, but a much lower ball flight with more run and release on landing there. So that ball flew 32 to finish 38, so 6 yards of run. My previous one was 7 yards of run, whereas the fade, we saw something stopping very quickly. Now that ball flight, or that technique is actually going to work to mean that I am very shallow. What does that mean? The club isn't coming down into the ground, it's actually sweeping almost. The angle of descent, the angle of attack of the club is going to be a lot shallower. Now that's going to work when you want to pick the ball off the top of the grass. So if the ball's sitting up in the grass, maybe in that lush lie, softer lie, this technique can work really well to mean that the club doesn't dig, it glides a little bit more. And as I said at the start there, it works really well when we want the ball to run and release. So if we've got a back flag, it's much safer to land the ball in the middle of the green and let the ball roll and release. What differences do we see when we hit the fade approach? And I'll go on to why we would try and do this and the lie that this would help with. So now I've got the ball visually more forwards in my stance, nearer my front foot. That's going to help me hit it a little bit higher. I've actually opened my stance, so the complete opposite. I've got my body now pointing more to the left. I'm encouraging my swing to follow my body line. So the draw, my body is aiming more to the right. The fade, my body is aiming more to the left. For me as a right-hander, left-handers switch. So the ball's more forwards, my body's more open. My club face is open, which is the opposite actually. That's a bit confusing for a beginner golfer. So actually the club face is open, which is aiming to the right. My body is open, which is aiming to the left. I know that sounds a little strange. So they're in opposite directions. And we always change the face before we grip it. We don't grip and then twist. We actually want to open the face before we put our hands onto it. And you may see from here, I'm standing closer to it and more upright, whereas with the draw, I was a bit further away, my handle was a lot lower. Now I'm getting much closer to it, getting that handle more up in the air. And I'm just going to try and get my swing to follow my feet. And we're going to look at something at the end of the golf swing. Okay, so it's a longer motion, isn't it? The club is finished a lot higher. I've missed the target slightly. I've missed the target there, but the technique hopefully was still pretty good. So the club was going more to the left, the club is finished a lot higher, and the club face looks like it's pointing a lot more back towards me. So when I'm hitting that fade shot, I'm ending up with a wrist position more this way. Okay, so the back of my glove logo is pointing more towards me. I've effectively done that more with the wrist, whereas with the draw, my wrist was a lot quieter through the motion. So there's more release here of the wrist actually going into extension through that movement. And that will just come about automatically with those setup changes because I'm moving across the ball this way. Okay, and that's really giving us that height, that stopping power. Now, what lie would I play this from? Well, this is an incredibly good technique from a bad lie, when we still want height, when we still want elevation. So the ball might be a little bit more buried down into the ground, into the grass, or maybe just off a very poor bare lie. So we can actually get that club cutting across the golf ball and still get some height. Let's see if I can hit a better one of that. Open the club before I grip it, ball more forwards, body aiming a little bit more left, swing on my body line. There we go. So although that was short of target, you'll again see how quickly that ball stopped, how vertical my club shaft is in the finish position, a spin rate into the mid sort of 6,000s, whereas the draws it was low 5,000. So there's a 1,300, 400 revolutions of backspin difference between the draw and the fade, but also a massive difference in the launch angle. It made about 8 to 10 degrees difference in the launch angle. The peak height, obviously, of the fade was a lot higher. The stopping power was a lot quicker. So it's nice having more than one option in there. Yes, we can vary the club, but actually being able to alter how we're using the club means we're starting to use different parts of the sole. And that really means that we can utilize this from different lies, whether it's a soft, lush lie and we want that draw approach, or whether it's a harder, tighter lie and we actually want that more cutty fade approach. It gives you more options around the green, which is ultimately going to lower your golf scores. If this video does help, make sure you smash the like button and don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more content just like this.